Across the Spider-Verse. So last night I ended the stream a little early because I wanted to watch again Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I watched before, so it'll be my second. This is my second viewing, and I saw like a lower quality version, so it wasn't the best first watch, but I was able to watch a 4K HDR version this time, and I was fully paying attention, and I enjoyed myself. It was fun. It was a good movie. It's like probably the best superhero movie in a long time. I mean, it's up there. Definitely better than anything else I've seen this year in regards to superheroes. But the thing is that it's the middle story. It's like it feels like the Empire Strikes Back. It feels like the Last Jedi of this Spider-Verse trilogy, you know. So the third one could kind of turn the tables and maybe ruin some of the things I like about this movie. I don't know. It's hard to say. But the main thrust of this movie really is the idea of going against established canon. You know, Miles Morales' character. And by the way, I'm going to put up a spoilers tag because we will be spoiling it a little bit here. So be warned if you're watching the VOD or live. I may come back in 10 minutes or so. So it's basically Miles Morales. His whole thing really is he wants to save his father, obviously, right? Because it is destined in a canon event for all these characters to have this like figure in their life that dies to, you know, and already the Prowler died in Miles' universe, so maybe why would he need another character to die? I mean, yeah, it happens in life, right? More people die. But anyways, you know, what I mean is like there's Uncle Ben, and then in most every story, Captain Stacy dies, which is the father of Gwen in most of the stories of the Spider World. But in Miles' universe, his father is about to be promoted to captain, and so he wants to prevent that. And Miguel O'Hara, I think his name is, the future Spider-Man, which is right here, this dude. He's like the top honcho at this spider folk organization that can traverse the multiverse and make sure that everything goes according to plan and no canon events are subverted or anything. He tries to keep this order, you know, and so Miles is like, no, I gotta go my own way. And so by the end of the film, him and some other of his spider friends join him, or you know, he gets caught in the end, but like he's not there. They end up being on his side at the end, trying to find him, versus O'Hara and his team who are trying to find him to stop him from trying to stop Miles from saving his father. So basically it's the idea of like change versus not change, versus, you know, the idea of like Spider-Man can be more inclusive, anyone can be Spider-Man. We don't have to be beholden to these old tired tropes of superheroism. We don't have to always repeat the same story beats. We can change, we can improve, we can progress as storytellers, as fans of this hero, of this genre, etc., etc. And so a lot of this is, you know, leans towards these progressive ideas, and the movie itself is very inclusive when it comes to its characters, and, you know, whether it's gender, size, or race, you know. And of course that's gotten a lot of more right-wingers upset a little bit, but that's not what I'm talking about right Um, but yeah, so I think overall it's a good message. The thing is that where is it? How's it going to conclude? Um, but it does seem like the main theme is like, let's try to do something different, with this story. So we'll see how it goes. In the finale, which we'll probably won't be seeing until 2-3 years from now. First of all, it came out this year that people who worked on Spider-Verse, the animators, they were overworked, and there was a lot of conflict and trouble with the writers, Miller and Lord and Miller. They would have changed the idea like on a whim, like okay, they would keep reiterating like to a point where like it frustrated the animators, and to a point where it caused a lot of tensions. It overworked them. They would turn in something, and then they were like, okay, let's do this now. Let's change this whole thing, and that would ruin months of work and stuff. So it's like it was pretty harsh environment, and so there's definitely a lot of complaints there, mismanagement, and they were working almost till release, I think, right, to get it done. And there was even like different variations of different scenes in the theaters. Like there was like slight differentiation, so they had all this material to work with, and which it contributed to a really well crafted, well produced, like just a well crafted film, technology, like technically and structurally. But they could have done that with better working conditions, and they could have taken more time with it. But how capitalism works, it's all about increased productivity and efficiency, and trying to get things done as quick as possible with the least amount of money paid to their workers, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so hopefully all that bad press can improve things in the future for the next film. We'll see. But that aside, the film is a great film. Like just the story, the dialogue, the characters, the story beats in general. The main downside really is just how it ends, kind of like a cliffhanger. It ends like an episode of a weekly TV series, so it's like it's a bit of a bummer to like have to wait so long, between events. This one came out 2023. The first one came out in 2019, so that's 4 years, right? So are we gonna have to wait to 2027 for the next one? So we'll see. And so it does feel like, also because the story is incomplete, it does feel like thematically are not quite sure where the film lands, particularly when we talk about the copoganda in the film, the idea that there's good cops and there's bad cops, and if we get the bad cops out, then we can maintain the status quo of policing. It's not like explicit, but the first movie, I believe, introduced Miles's father as a cop, and I feel like in the original comic he wasn't. I don't know, but there's been issues there of just portraying like, oh, okay, so the first Black Spider-Man has a father who's a cop, so now there's no need to tackle the racism in the police force of New York in the story, because we're not doing that. Look, he's a good cop. He's Miles' father, whatever. So I don't know. It feels a little pandering to the blue demographic, but but this film, the second, Across the Spider-Verse, does have some interesting scenes. in particular with Gwen's father. Now, again, we're in spoilers. It starts off with like this movie with Gwen's side of the story, and you know, her father thinks, who's the captain of the police force, whatever, believes that Spider-Woman, aka Gwen Stacy, is the murders Peter, you know, which was not true. She was trying to save him, whatever. But he believes that, so he wants to hunt her down. He wants to hunt down Spider-Woman. And of course, you know, Gwen, his daughter, he doesn't know is Spider-Woman. So there's conflict there, and eventually at a crime scene, he stops her. He points a gun at her, at Spider-Woman, and it's like, you know, we're under arrest, etc., etc. And Gwen tries to talk her down, but it's a frightening scene, and hopefully it reminds people of real world cops pointing guns at people and killing them. But in this story, he hesitates long enough for Spider-Woman to take her mask off and reveal, "It's me, your daughter," and that gets him real conflicted there. But oddly enough, as part of his character growth, it seems, he tries to bury his emotions and maintain and stand his ground as a cop, and frickin', you know, is about to arrest his own daughter, you know. I think he reads her the Miranda rights. I don't know. It's like he's about to arrest her. And then luckily, some spider folk from across the universe, the Spider-Verse, come in, and she goes to report her when she exits, and now Gwen has to grapple with this idea of like, oh, maybe I can't go home anymore, and I'll always be on the run from my own father, which is depressing. Eventually, she does get back to her world, and confronts her father. She does a little speech about how she's wearing the mask kind of like he wears his badge. She wants to protect people and do it in the right way, and you know, and she's like, "You're a good cop, Dad," like, you know. So again, it's a little bit pandering to Blue Lives Matter a little bit about, okay, well, you know, as long as you're a good cop, it's all okay to have a police state. But then the interesting thing is that he says that he's decided to quit the force, you know, and so it's not entirely clear the reason. He says it's like, I decided to quit during your speech. It's her speech about her trying to be a good, you know, a good hero, you know, and wearing the mask to protect people. Perhaps he realizes that he, as a cop, he's gonna have to go up against his own daughter, and he's not willing to do that. So I don't know if it just indicates that he's quitting just because he doesn't want to have to arrest his daughter, or if he sees that the whole system is whack, and of the policing system, and doesn't feel like he's going to do anything with that, you know, that he feels like it's not worth being a cop anymore. Like, perhaps the next film will elaborate, maybe not, probably not, but you could read it as a way, as a commentary on the police state. You could read that as like, oh, like, this father, this cop has realized that policing isn't working. He's realized that he's doing more harm than good, like, and so he's decided to quit. Maybe he could go to social services. Maybe he could, maybe he could advocate for reform to fund abolition. That may be a little too far for Lord and Miller to be allowed to express or even desire, but one can hope, right? But yeah, so we'll see. So that's some indications that, okay, this movie maybe is thinking a little bit more deeply about policing. But we'll see. Like, it could double down on copaganda, as I said in my video in the next episode of Spider-Verse. So there's that. There's lots of good things about the movie. I mean, speaking of policing, Miles Morales has a BLM sticker, or not sticker, BLM pin on his bag. So it's like at least an indication from the creators that, like, hey, like, we do support BLM. But will it really seriously tackle it head on in the next iteration of this franchise, or the next episode in this trilogy? We'll have to see. There's also the idea that a lot of people have seen in Gwen's character, which is the idea that she represents trans identity. Her whole idea of, like, hiding behind a mask, having to be two different people, trying to find acceptance from her father, and he finally does. She has a trans kids, protect trans kids sticker on her wall, and even like his father has it on his trans flag on his badge, it seems. And then that whole scene with her and his father is all lit in pink and blues and the color of the trans flag. So there's a lot of symbolism that could be interpreted as pro-trans rights, and some fans have interpreted that to mean that Gwen could be trans herself, or at the very least represents that, or one can have that reading and it fits nicely in the story. Now, I don't think Lord Miller or Sony explicitly wanted to make or will make Gwen trans. That would be nice. That would be cool. It would be in theme with the rest of this story of, the idea of you can be yourself as a spider person. You can be what you desire, what you are, and not be beholden to conform to certain gender roles, etc., etc. But that reading is there, and that's interesting, and yeah. And then again, there's also the character of Spider-Punk, which is interesting. Now, the character of Spider-Punk, I feel like a lot of the things he says, basically he's against everything. Like, he's always against something. There's always a just trying to be anti-establishment, etc., etc. Like, there's a one joke where he's like, oh, I'm against comedy or something, and then he's like, I'm just joking, and like, so he's like, it's almost seen as a joke, like the idea of punks being a little bit naive because they don't like anything or whatever. They're anarchistic in the sense that they're against everything, but he's also shown to be very thoughtful and as a sort of a mentor and an ally of Miles, kind of rebelling against the current Spider-Verse system, against Miguel, who wants more order, So he kind of the Spider-Punk character encourages Miles to break from establishment. So he's shown as like a positive character in the end, even though some of his quips or some of his lines can be seen as a little bit satirical or something. So that's good. It's a good thing to see this anti-authoritarian character be portrayed in a good light, mostly. There's a joke he makes. It's like there's a city sinking into a wormhole or something, and he's like, oh, that's a metaphor for capitalism. So he says things like that. But yeah, but the thing is that, of course, it doesn't really um, elaborate too much on his political views, Spider-Punk, and it would be nice to see, you know, in the next film or somewhere down the line, an examination of his anarchistic politics, treated in a serious way, not as a joke or anything. That'd be interesting. But it's good to see him there, at least in this movie. So yeah, so there's a lot of great stuff about it, and you know, and like I said, just technically, structurally, you know, it's a fun, well, a satisfying movie. Up to the point where at the end there's that cliffhanger that like leaves you wanting, which some people would say is a great thing, and it's great, especially if you can watch the next movie right after or soon after. But when you have to wait, some viewers, it's like maybe you could have concluded it a little earlier or concluded it at a different point where it felt more like a full movie, you know.